Well, hi, fifth graders. Welcome back to Wit and Wisdom in Sync. I'm Miss Foley, and this is Module 1, Cultures in Conflict. We're on our way. Let's roll. You will need a few materials for today's lesson. You'll need your copy of Thunder Rolling in the Mountains. You'll need Assessment 26, Focusing Question Task 5. That's right. We are getting ready. Handout 18B, which is the evidence organizer, and you have one for both Chief Joseph and one for Sound of Running Feet. Your Wit and Wisdom in Sync journal, a pen or pencil, and optional colored pencils. If you need to pause the video now to retrieve these materials, please feel free to do so. So the essential question that got us started on this journey is, how do cultural beliefs and values guide people? And we've been looking very closely at two particular people, and those are Chief Joseph and his daughter, Sound of Running Feet. Do you realize all the work that you've done, gathering evidence, elaborating on it, and analyzing evidence, all to understand the beliefs and values that guide Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet, and to look at the ways they are alike and how they're different? Dun, da, da, da. Well, you're now ready to take those ideas to start planning your essays for Focusing Question Task 5. So let's take a look at this task together. All right, let's take a look at Assessment 26, Focusing Question Task 5. Here it is. So I'd like you to make sure that you have your copy of Focusing Question Task 5, and you can read along with me. I'm going to go through it so that we're all clear on what the task is. I'm also going to highlight and maybe even make a few notes to myself about things that I want to remember to pay attention to. All right, let's see what we have here. Purpose. Again, you know how I like to know why we're doing things. This task will give you an opportunity to express your understanding of the focusing question: what important beliefs and values guide Chief Joseph and his daughter, Sound of Running Feet? As you finish reading the novel Thunder Rolling in the Mountains by Scott Odell and Elizabeth Hall. Writing about this topic and practicing your essay writing skills will help you prepare to write an essay for the end of module task. Introduction. Individuals, like cultures, define themselves by what they believe in and care most about. And over the past several weeks, you've traveled alongside Chief Joseph, his daughter, Sound of Running Feet, and the Nez Perce tribe as they flee their homeland pursued by the U.S. Army in search of freedom and safety for their people. You've paid close attention to the narrator, Sound of Running Feet, and her father, Chief Joseph, to understand how their core beliefs and values are reflected in their thoughts, words, and actions in the story. What important beliefs and values do they share? How do their beliefs and values differ? How do their beliefs and values guide their actions and decisions in the novel? I'm going to pause just for a second here to highlight this, because this is the question, right? Or actually this set of questions that we have to keep in the forefront as we're working. Also, remember this too: words, actions, thoughts. Those are good things to keep in mind as well, because any of those three provide good evidence. All right, your task, here it is. For an audience who has read and studied Thunder Rolling in the Mountains as you have, so look at who your audience is. It would be either classmates or other people who've been reading this text. Write an essay to compare and contrast Chief Joseph's and Sound of Running Feet's most important beliefs and values. We already know this: compare and contrast. That means we're going to show one way in which they're similar and one way in which they're different. In your essay, explain one important belief. I'm actually going to make it out here. One important belief or value that Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet share, and one important way in which their values and beliefs differ. and explain how these beliefs and values guide each character's actions in the novel. Develop your ideas with evidence from Thunder Rolling in the Mountains, and I hope you feel really confident at this point because you've been very busy collecting evidence along the way. The success for criteria. Let's take a look here to make sure that you know what is supposed to be included. And this is really useful because you can refer back to it at any time, almost like a checklist. Okay, let's see. Your paragraph should include an introduction that includes or provides background or context. You're going to set your readers up to know, where this story is taking place and kind of give an understanding of what's happening. A clear thesis that states a key similarity and a key difference between Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet's beliefs or values. 2 supporting paragraphs. One is a comparison, which means similarity, and one that develops a contrast or difference. In each supporting paragraph, evidence from Thunder Rolling in the Mountain of the characters' shared or differing beliefs and values is going to be included. And, no surprise here, in each supporting paragraph, elaboration of the evidence to explain, and this is the key thing, explain how it shows a similarity or difference between the characters' beliefs or values and how these beliefs or values guide the characters' actions. Really what drives them to do, think, and say what they do. You'll also include transitions within and between paragraphs to compare and contrast your ideas. A conclusion, remember the conclusion's job is to reinforce your thesis and add a special note about why it's significant. And as always, remember to stay focused on correct spelling, punctuation, and capitalization. Okay, are you ready to roll? Be sure to check in with your classroom teacher if you have any questions about these success criteria. We're actually going to get started on your essay. So exciting. Don't worry though, we're going to take it one step at a time. In this lesson, you're going to develop a thesis statement to express your essential idea. What beliefs and values do Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet share? And what values and beliefs do they have that differ? You probably already have some hashtag ideas. Do you remember the job of a thesis statement in an essay? Specifically, a comparison-contrast essay? So what is the job of a thesis statement in a comparison-contrast essay? Go ahead and share your ideas aloud, either with a learning partner or just yourself. All right, here you go. You can check your memory. A thesis in a comparison-contrast essay does the following. It identifies the subjects being compared and contrasted. It states an essential idea about how they are alike and different. And it includes 2 points, one about similarities and one about differences. How did you do? Awesome job if you remember the job of a thesis statement and said it in your own words. So keep these ideas in mind. You're going to develop your own thesis for your essay about Sound of Running Feet and Chief Joseph. So you're going to need handout 18B, which is your evidence organizer for both Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet for the next part of the lesson. So grab those now. Do you have your handout 18B, one for each of the characters, ready? Great. The next step will be to review your evidence organizers with a couple of questions in mind. One is, what important beliefs do Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet share? And the other is, in what ways do their beliefs and values differ? You've already begun to sort through your evidence with hashtags similar and hashtag different. And you also probably have some very helpful notes from discussions with your classroom teacher. And if so, pull those out now. You can review those as well. So remember, handout 18B is the evidence organizer for Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet. And as you remember, I have actually just copied mine on a larger sheet so that it is big enough to hold a little bit more information. And I've got a lot. So let's take a look at this. I wanted to just highlight for you a way to think about sorting the elaboration that you have. So here are my two handouts, one for Chief Joseph and one for Sound of Running Feet. And remember, the goal is not only to sort, but to pay attention to which beliefs and values have the most or the best evidence, because that's going to make it much easier for you to write. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Let's see. So let's take a look first at Chief Joseph. Look at all these hashtag different. One here is similar, and I want to look at that in a minute, and different. So what is it that makes these beliefs and values, or the evidence that I've collected, that makes it different from Sound of Running Feet? He knows the impending flood of settlers. He's trying to think of the best way for his people to live peacefully. He acknowledges the danger of the surrounding soldiers and alludes to Sitting Bull's victory as temporary. His people's safety and living peacefully come first. This is important because Chief Joseph has tried to prevent killing, and now action has been set into motion that will lead to more harm. He values peace. Did you notice that this is very connected to this piece of evidence here? He values living peacefully. Here's another one. Chief Joseph's first priority is the safety of his people, so safety and peace. And here's another one that says different. Chief Joseph has decided to surrender and never fight again. He cares most about finding and caring for his people. So one of the two major things that we see that come out in several pieces of evidence here is that he values safety and peace for his people. That is, I think, what I might want to capture as the key belief that distinguishes Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet, and what really drives his actions. Let's look at what's similar. This is the one that I have here, similar to Sound of Running Feet. Chief Joseph believes battles should be fought fairly, warrior to warrior. Women and children are to be protected. And I think that they both share this, this value. Although I want to point out, is this the most critical piece of evidence, or do you think some of these others seem stronger or better supported? Mostly because I simply have more evidence. Quick peek at Sound of Running Feet. She's determined to fight for her people's rights. So fighting and taking a stand, very important for Sound of Running Feet. Here she loves her homeland. That was similar, but she would actually defy her father in order to stay. So that kind of goes with taking a stand, but it's slightly different. Cares deeply for her people. This is something similar to look at with Chief Joseph. She's proud of her people and always willing to fight for what she believes in. Again, there is that same piece of evidence. She's willing to risk a very dangerous situation to fight for her people. Do you start to see a pattern showing up here? So your job as you look through your evidence is to really think about, what evidence do I have and what elaboration have I come up with that has clumped together so that I have more to write about? What's the big idea that's different and the big idea that's similar? Okay, pause the video, take a few minutes, and review your evidence organizers and any other notes that you have with these questions in mind. All right, now it's your turn. Considering these two questions, go through and sort your evidence now. So before you get started on your draft thesis statement, I thought I would just take a moment to give you an idea of how I think about how I might draft a thesis from the evidence and elaboration that I have. And I'm just going to use an example that's not the same as what you'll be doing, but it is something familiar. I'm going to just do an example for you of how I think this through using the white women settlers and Sound of Running Feet. And we did look at an exemplar essay that was comparing and contrasting these two. So I'm going to show you how I think about pulling some evidence here, naming it, and drafting a thesis statement. So if I look through my evidence and I determine that there's something key that's different here, and then I've identified maybe something similar, well, now I want to name it. So what is this? Remember this description? The one on the gray horse has seen as many snows as my mother. She had eyes the color of an early morning sky, a narrow nose, and a sharp chin. Her hair was the shade of dried grass, which she had twisted up on top of her head. She was so strange looking that I felt sorry for her. She wore many long skirts and sat with both legs on the same side of a horse. It seemed a foolish way to ride. So all of this description, and rather than being about a value, this is really about something that I would call appearance, like how they look. Oops. That's what I'm going to call this difference between Sound of Running Feet and the white women settlers. Now, I want to name something that is similar. Here I have evidence. You'll also probably remember this scene. Bending Willow began to cry. I did not leave the fire, but her cries stopped. I heard soft murmurs and turned to see Yellowhair rocking the cradle board. Soon Bending Willow was fast asleep. A little bit later, Dirty Face pulled her robe around her and began to cry. Yellowhair spoke softly to her. She put her arm about the girl's shoulders as a mother would comfort a hurt child. It puzzled me to see that white women acted no different from women of the Ninipu. So this, I think I would call relationships. So they're relationships between the baby and a woman, and also the two women seem similar to relationships that she has observed in the Ninipu. Relationships. Those are what I'm going to write about. So I'm going to begin by saying Sound of Running Feet. Had not had opportunity, feet. Had not had opportunities to interact with white women. So she paid close attention. Oops, I missed a word, didn't I? So she paid close attention. Remember, this is a draft. I can make this much fancier later. During her first encounter. Okay, here we go. Although this kind of alerts my readers that there's going to be something to pay attention to. Although Sound of Running Feet, this is an abbreviation just for my draft, was surprised by how different their appearance was. She also realized that the women's, remember my next word here, I've named it, relationships other. And you know what, I'm going to specify here, the white women, so I want to make sure that's clear. The white women's relationships with each other were similar to those of many women. Just want to highlight one thing. Although usually means I'm going to contrast, and there's the word different, and here is what I named. This is the difference, the appearance. That's what I'm talking about. Later on in my paragraphs, I'll be able to go and give many examples of this. She also realized the women's relationships, I named what I was describing here, were similar. So I could almost put a hashtag there, but I'm not going to, not in my draft thesis. All right, that's an example of how I thought through it. I hope it's helpful as you begin to draft yours. Have you reviewed your evidence organizers for similar and different beliefs and values? If you need more time, feel free to pause the video and finish doing so. Otherwise, you're ready to generate your 2 points. Next, I'd like for you to do a quick write in response to these questions in your journals. Number 1, what point do I want to make in my essay about a belief or value that Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet share? Also consider, how will I name this belief or value? Number 2, what point do I want to make about an important way their beliefs and values differ? And how will I name these different beliefs or values? The goal of this quick write is to help you organize your thinking around these questions and to get your ideas out. The goal is not to draft a perfect thesis in this exercise, because you'll have opportunities to revise it. Pause the video and complete this quick write now in your journals. Okay, have you finished your quick write to come up with your 2 points? Did you decide how you wanted to name the characters' beliefs and values? If you need more time, feel free to pause the video and finish doing so. Otherwise, you're ready to now draft your thesis statement. All right, for this check for understanding, you are going to draft a thesis statement for focusing question task 5. Number 1, state an essential idea about Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet. Include the following points: 1 belief or value that they share, and 1 way their beliefs or values differ. And by the way, it's up to you to decide which order you want to put your points in. Either way is fine. You can write about the shared beliefs first or the differences first. You may also color code your thesis. If you want to color code the stem green and point 1 yellow and point blue 2, you may certainly do that. And you also may just write color-coded words if you wish. That is optional. All right, pause the video and draft a thesis statement in your journals. I hope it was interesting for you to take a look at all the evidence and elaboration you've collected to see what the key similarities and differences are in the beliefs and values of Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet. I am so excited that you're ready to develop your ideas about Chief Joseph and Sound of Running Feet into a longer essay. Thank you so much for your hard work. I know this takes a lot of pondering. I also know that your planning and your preparation will leave you feeling very proud of yourselves. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you soon.